Hi everyone, today we're making the Active Beanie. Great for running, cycling and all outdoor activities. So here are all the cut pieces for the Active Beanie. We have the band, the internal pocket and the two panels of the actual headpiece. So we're going to lay them up and pin them so that we can get ready to sew. Right sides together. This one, and we're going to pin. Today I'm using ballpoint pins. I like to use ballpoint pins for all knit fabrics because they glide through your fabric a little better. I'm also pinning outwards because we're going to be sewing on the overlocker, and you always want to try and make sure that you can always see your pins because you never want your pins to go through an overlocker blade because it will break either the pin or the blade. Either way, you don't want sharp pieces of metal flying towards your face. So pin outwards, it's much easier. Okay, so we've pinned, we're going to sew around. Before we sew around, we're going to add the internal pocket. So the internal pocket, we fold this section down. We don't have to worry about finishing this edge because because it's a knit fabric, it doesn't fray. So we can just fold it down. I'm going to fold it in half, making sure all those little edges tuck inside. Just going to pop a pin in there to help me hold it in place. Then I'm going to line the curve up. So this little hidden pocket on the Active Beanie is fabulous if you're going running and you need to carry either your key for your house or to get into your building if you're in an apartment block, or if you need to stash some emergency money to buy the milk or the bread on the way home. So it just sits in there. We're going to pop across to the overlocker now and stitch around the outside. So here's the main parts of the Active Beanie. We're just going to lift the presser foot a little bit, line them up to the edge, drop it back down again. So through this we've got both layers of the main crown section as well as the concealed pocket. So I'm just going to get it started. Take out our pins before we get there. Whenever you have to sew a curve on an overlocker, don't think about moving around the curve. Think about this edge here meeting this flat edge. So you can literally just pull it into place, stitch, removing your pins, and the fabric will just flex around for you. And when you take it out from underneath the machine, it will be a curve. So that's the crown piece with the little concealed pocket just sitting on the side there. We'll pop it aside and then we're going to work on the band. Next we're going to sew the band for the Active Beanie. So we're going to fold it in half, matching up the edge. And we're going to pin this edge. Sometimes you'll see, like here, knit fabrics roll a little bit. Don't worry about it too much. It does get worse with humidity, I know that, but always just pop a pin in and it will hold it in place and then you have to worry. So we're going to stitch down here on the overlocker and then come back for the next step. This is the band of the Active Beanie, which we pinned together earlier. I'm just going to start running it in a little, take out the pin. Oops, knocked off my box. Okay. Always remember to give yourself a nice long tail so that your machine doesn't unthread. So that's the band as it stands now, and we're going to go across to the table and pin it onto the crown of the Active Beanie. So here's the Active Beanie after we have stitched the outside of the crown with its little pocket. I'm just going to trim up the edges. So when we trim the edges, snip quite close to the edge and pull. It will automatically lock off. So you can see it's locked and you can trim. Do the same to the other side. So we cut close, we pull, and it auto locks off. And then we trim again. So we'll just pop that onto one side. And now we have the band. So the band, again, we can just clip, pull, snip again. To fold the band in half lengthwise. So sometimes it's easier if you do this from where the seam allowance actually is by folding in half until you get the fold the whole way round. Standing sideways to my table to actually make this fit inside the filming area, and it's feeling very weird to not be straight on, but hopefully it means you can see it a little better. So I'm just going to pin the edges up, and you just want the edges to sit flat and one on top of each other. So once you've got it pinned and you have a circle, I'm going to fold it in half from the seam allowance. So seam allowance, flatten it. I'm going to move one of the pins to the end. So I'm now going to hold this end pin, flatten it the other way, match my end pin to my seam allowance one underneath, and then move my pins to each edge, and I find it easier just to go in from the side. Okay, so now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pins, so when I open up my circle you can see each of the quarters has actually got a pin in it. So if we now take our crown of our cap and we think about this as being 1 and 2, we need to find the halfway point. So we fold it in half till the edges meet. We'll grab 2 more pins. One goes on the outside, one goes on the inside. My outside one is just called the inside lining, so I'm just going to take it out. So now we can to the inside. Take the seam allowance section of our band, line it up to one corner. I like to line it up to where I've put my pocket, because when I'm taking my beanie on and off when I'm out running, it reminds me to hold that section in my hand so that I don't lose my key, which can be useful particularly if you're running at night or in an area with an uneven terrain. You don't have to spend ages on your hands and knees trying to find. So I've pinned one here. I've automatically gone to my next pin of my band, matched it to my next pin of my crown. So I'll put one pin on top of each other. Again, twirl it around, next pin of my band goes to the next seam allowance of my crown. I'm just lining all the edges up and pushing the seam allowance flat. And one more. Edge to edge, matching my pins. So now if I pull it open, you'll see that the band is sitting inside the circle and it's not quite matching up. I'll need to just put a little bit of tension into the sewing to make the band stitching. We will do that on the overlocker and then we'll come back and show you the finished product. Here we have the band of the Active Beanie. Lift my presser foot, pull the fabric in. Just make sure that my seam my seam of my band and my seam of my crown match up. I just have to remove my pin before I start. Turning the machine on also helps. Okay, so I'm just going to get it started. So underneath here, this section here is also the secret pocket. So I'm just making sure that all of those edges are aligning there. And now this is where these two pins here that you can see, this is where the band attaches to the crown. So I'm just going to make sure they sit flat. And to do that, I literally just pull them flat. So I'm not pulling the fabric as such. I'm just ensuring that they sit flat, taking out my pins. So I'm holding it here at the next pin section, so the next quarter. I'm making sure all of my edges are aligned, that nothing's caught in underneath, sitting flat. Okay, I'm going to take the pin out. Again, I pick up the next set of pins. I hold everything flat, make sure my edges are aligned. You always want the edges of your band to be aligned as well as the edges of the crown of your hat, because otherwise you'll put a twist into your band, which won't look great and probably mean you have to unpick if you want it to sit nice and flat. Okay, so we're getting to that pin. So instead of worrying about the whole circle at once, we're literally just going quarter by quarter to get everything to sit flat. As you come back round to the joining section, take the tail of your thread, pull it to one side, cuts it off. You end up with a nice long thread. Trim, then here trim a little bit closer, pull your threads, it auto locks off and pulls all of these down, trim in nice and close again. You don't have to worry about tucking in any of the ends because it's already knotted itself off. I hope you enjoyed making the Active Beanie. Don't forget you can get all of the patterns on the website, the links are down below. Hit the subscribe button so you can see more videos coming up soon, and have fun running.